What's up, everybody? Today I have my friend Payton in the yours truly actual studio. Payton and I go way back. I've shared tidbits of his story on the channel. Some of my very earliest videos about Jordan Peterson and the meta narrative, kind of postmodern uh, relativism versus kind of a meta modern objective things can have greater value, even when postmodernism tried to relativize everything. Was a powerful illustration in our relationship and discovering, rediscovering, reconstructing Christianity together. And that was like a really weird thing. I don't even know if all that made sense, but that's kind of what happened. And so he has recently moved back to the great area that I'm from, that we met in whenever I went back to school, and he was just starting college. So I'm just recording this. This may never see the light of day, but we're gonna have some fun tonight and kind of blow off some steam. And so, anyways, I'm excited to welcome to the studio my friend Payton. Hi, this is Christian Baxter, and you're listening to yours truly, a place we go to think out loud. Trying out something new. Payton, let's see. Yeah, if I can. There's my hand. That's my hand. Like, see, it's real. We're really in the same room. This in my actual studio. Brought him up to the Bat Cave.
It's not green screen, guys. It's all real,
Yeah, he said he thought some of my stuff was like this. I designed this on green screen, but it's like you can touch everything. I actually pulled that picture off the wall we were going over earlier. That's the picture I saw at the art conference with JG Fox is the illustrator. And whenever I first got there, and one of the first people I was talking to was Jordan Hall, and he was like, I was like, hey, can we take a picture together? He's like, yeah, we got to go in front of this picture thing. He's like, it's awesome. It was in the Unheard booth. So we pulled it off. We were looking at it. It's like got this whole, how would you describe that picture, Payton?
What is it, like the battle map of the culture wars, So
Yeah.
it's got like, Frog Twitter, the universities, and all Jordan Peterson leading the incels to God and all sorts of stuff like that on there. It's pretty fun.
How did, when you kind of understood conceptually what it is, like what was your initial thought on all that?
Oh, I thought it was hilarious. You know what I mean? Like, and it looks really good too. Like the art on it's really good.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's actually got like people on it, and every person is like named.
There's a legend.
Yeah, there's like a legend on it.
There's a map legend. Yeah, so we met when all of that was like just bubbling, like really kind of still probably right underneath the surface of mainstream stuff. And that was, we were talking about like using Ben Shapiro voice and being silly, and like I was much older. He was in that, you were like what, 17, 18, 19?
Yeah, I was like 18, I think. Yeah.
And you were, I don't know, way into that scene, like on the mimetic level of that scene, and I was just kind of in like the normie level of that scene, as we've so often discussed the levels of that. But yeah, man, like I said, we're gonna see if what happens. I was like, what could we do? Oh, we could do some reaction videos.
Yeah.
I've never had like, first thing I want to do is, I said, I think Payton actually looks like the co-host on Ruslan. And so I'm going to try to pull this up and see, and everyone can tell in the comments, you can tell if Payton looks like Ruslan's co-host. We'll just kind of
find. Oh, I've seen that guy. Yeah, I know.
I've seen that guy.
I've seen him. Yeah.
Look at all this Israel stuff.
Yeah.
Ooh, we don't have to go down that rabbit trail.
Yeah.
Here's one. We'll see okay, I'm gonna try to pull this up on the screen. Woo. This is Jared. I had Jared on the channel. All right, here we go. We'll pull it up. Let's see if I can find his co-host. Or maybe this may not even be one where he's like talking to. Oh, he's just like straight up post. This is Jared's video, not Ruslan's video.
Looked like one of his thumbnails.
I know, it's like that to that is like maybe that was the point.
Yeah.
All his spicy takes. Here, let's do one. This is an up and coming Protestant apologist. This was part of the whole reaction video thing we were like looking at. Payton is a he's a
I'm LARPing as a Catholic.
You're LARPing as a Catholic, but you just got out. You've been in the military for several years, and before you left to get into the military, you were attending you went to some RCIA classes, if I recall, and that was like years ago.
Oh yeah, I went for a couple months and everything for RCIA and whatnot.
And then you kind of were like, I don't know about Rome, and then
I had some like splinter group of the Seventh-Day Adventists start coming to my door, and they were like, "The Pope is the Antichrist. You're gonna sell your soul to the devil." And I was like, "Whoa, okay, I need to I haven't even heard any of this stuff before, So I had kind of like took a long time and just studied and stuff.
Yeah. But now you're like you said, supposedly LARPing as a Catholic, but very, very interested, very convinced. From what I understand.
For sure. Yeah.
Dude, here's Ruslan talking to these Orthodox people. I don't get these evangelical guys talking to Orthodox people.
They love it. Oh, that's you.
Definitely.
Yeah, that is like
you. 50. Yeah, like 15 Orthodox conversations on my channel. I'm looking for his co-host. I don't know. Maybe his live streams. I'm still on this mission to see if people think that Payton looks like Ruslan's co-host. All right, live. Okay. Payton was saying he thinks he's a boomer when it comes to using some of like the tech and stuff, but I'm pretty.
He's the Steve Jobs of this stuff over here,
The Steve Jobs.
He's got all the lighting and all these mic arms and everything.
No, it's the Chris Williamson dude. Chris.
Oh, okay.
You know who he is?
Nah.
You would probably recognize him. Chris Williamson, he's got a podcast. He's interviewed like all the IDW guys. He's got he's like the happy atheist manosphere, all right, let's see if I can. I'm still looking for this dude. All right, you can see he's talking to somebody there. And let's see if we can find a clip. This was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. Boy, he's talking about the war in Iraq. I don't know, or in Iran with Israel. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, Payton.
Oh, I don't know if that's too spicy for the TLC.
Yeah, it's kind of that can be a pretty intense. We're gonna keep this. He's just this news report. I'm looking for his co-host.
So when the third temple getting built?
When the third temple getting built, yo? Is that dispensational? What are we talking about?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what his theology is or anything, but
he's he goes to a mega church or kind of like I don't know if it's actual mega church, but wait, there he is. Okay, I found him in one. Add to the stage. Add the screen.
George Janko finally.
Goodness gracious, intense. Okay. We're gonna find. I know he was in here. Saw it on the preview. Oh, that's him. That's him right there. It's the hat too. There he is. Look.
Yeah. I can see it.
Payton.
Yeah.
There's some Payton there. Let's see. Are we showing up? Yeah, we're showing up there. We'll do a little extra big screen here. If I can get the other here. This one.
We both white guys with hats,
White guys with hats. His facial hair is a little lighter than yours, but your hair color is kind of
similar.
But your facial hair is a lot darker. Anyways, that's not a reaction video, but that was on my mind since we have I have like a man in the room.
It's crazy, yeah.
So yeah, Payton, what has been like? we obviously both kind of discovered Jordan Peterson, and we don't have to go into the whole. I mean, you can if you want the whole your grand critique of Jordan
Oh, yeah,
Peterson,
we don't gotta get it.
but like what from what you've popped into one or two of my streams actually, like when I've done stuff,
Mhm.
watch some of the podcasts, I'll send you stuff every now and then. What's kind of your overall look at the corner of like Paul Vanderklay's corner then, or what do you see when you look at that from what you've experienced?
It's kind of an interesting thing going on because y'all got like, you know, a bunch of Presbyterians and then like Orthodox guys and all sorts of different denominations kind of meeting together and stuff. And it's very friendly, it seems like, you know, so
Yeah.
it's kind of cool. It's definitely like in the wake of Jordan Peterson and everything, you know, and Jonathan Pageau, like, oh, the symbolic, you know, everything.
Yeah.
I actually thought he had a speech impediment for the longest time, and then
Tell
I
you
found out he
he's
was
French.
from Quebec. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
it's kind of like,
Yeah.
like a really staccato kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
cadence to his.
But yeah,
Yeah.
this TLC is pretty cool. Yeah.
TLC's pretty cool. I mean, it's not it's not like hanging out on Reddit or anything, but it's,
Well, I don't like Reddit or anything like
it's
that.
not like
but-
hanging out
yeah.
on like the sub tweets of Twitter or anything.
Oh yeah, just lighting people up for no reason, you know. Yeah.
But yeah, it's conversational. It is like you said in the wake of all that, and I don't know. The thing that I kind of think about that's where it kind of got identity was more from Paul, but Paul was like the main conversation starters were like Christian synthesis of Peterson, and how it kind of did wake people out of like a postmodern nihilism, atheistic nihilism, and so, and then it's gone from there. But one of the real characteristics though was this. Paul has had like over 500 randos conversations that are public. He's done more that aren't even released, where people, and then some people start their own channels and people engage in this kind of thing. It is, I don't know if you would say it is ecumenical, but there is a lot of there's like there's even like Jewish people that hang out, there's Catholic people, there's all that are kind of like in this digital space holding like relationship above like to some greater and lesser degrees like sectarian kind of thing. So I don't know, it's fun to explore ideas in that kind of space, where there's a lot of most of the time some openness. But it's interesting like with what's happening right now because like Nate Heil, who kind of operates Grail Country, he was a self-proclaimed Christian anarchist, but as the kind of like the what's being called like the woke right or the reactionary right or what is the deep, I don't know all the different names for, but like he's kind of like, no, actually like there's some things about liberalism that like, you know, and he's 10, 15 years older than me, which is like 25 years older than you. So like things kind of the change. I don't know. We're in a time where, and I'm interested for you on knowing this. We kind of had these sense makers that we look to, and it's kind of like I don't know where to look to for sense making as much. Do you feel that way? Like it's not as clear.
There's no real voices that are leading the way type of deal. Is
like
that what you mean?
Well, it seems like or at least they're not as prominent. The prominent ones of the last kind of generation, like namely like, you know, Peterson, like there's like who is next kind of hold the attention with a kind of clarity that cuts through. I don't know. I don't see that as much. I mean,
like Peterson and all these other guys and everything, like their cultural moment, I feel like was 5, 10, maybe not 10, but about 5 years ago or something like that.
Which internet age is like 15 years ago.
And now it's like you go back and look at Jordan Peterson's stuff from back then. It's still really good and everything, but it's like the conversation is so further along now in the internet age and everything.
Yeah, I mean, and then like, so you're 27?
Yeah.
what do you see as capturing the imagination of Zoomers? Where are the tensions that, and like, why do you think certain voices, like, I know we've talked about Bronze Age Pervert
Yeah.
before. Why do you feel like they capture so much of Gen Z's attention?
I think that there's like a hardness that has been missing in like a lot of culture and everything. Like everything's got pads on it, basically. You know, it's a Nerf reality type of deal. And, you know, I listened to Bronze Age Mindset when I was like running and stuff. And I was like, man, this is really saying something that's missing type of deal, you know? And he's talking about like, not so much like an emphasis on politics or anything, but just sort of like living your life with a ferocity type of deal. And I see that in a lot of different voices, that not even just like Bronze Age Pervert, but like even somebody like Nick Fuentes or something like that. Like all these different type, and even somebody like Redeemed Zoomer in a way, where he's on this crusade to go and retake the mainline churches and everything. So there's this big impulse, I feel like, in my generation and younger, of like something has to happen, you know, like there has to be,
You have to do,
yeah, exactly,
and it's not just like, okay, what happens after you clean your room?
exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
even
like,
though
we get it, Jordan, you know what I mean, like clean your room, but yeah, now what, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
I mean,
exactly.
and of course, like obviously that wasn't his,
Of course,
you know, but then but in the kind of mimetic sense of, and you know, we've talked off camera about Redeemed Zoomer word, but like I see that as kind of a positive place to put that energy. But there obviously is an energy, and there's always going to be an energy with men in their 20s. Like for me, it just happened to be that was like channeled into Jackass.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You know, like, let's just do crazy, like stunt shit. Like, and, you know, like I had friends that like smashed fluorescent bulbs over their back. Like, mock or copying off of like Jacket. Like, because there was a lot more, I mean, even you know, I was in college 20 years ago. There was a lot more stability. Like the worst thing that happened in 2005 was Hurricane Katrina, which I don't want to like diminish what that did to people, but it wasn't like, you know, obviously the Iraq and all that stuff was happening at the same time. But anyways, it seems different now. Like the vibe is different. You know, that's a big term. Like, what is the vibe shift in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you can see it with like the pull towards Roman Catholicism and Orthodoxy and traditional Protestantism and all that, like a return to order, a return to the past, you know, like, because I think a lot of, you know, Gen Z and everything is looking at the liberal project and the sort of zeitgeist of the age, and it's like, this is not going to go anywhere. You know what I mean? There's no future. So you have to look to the past. You have to look way past, like, where did it all go wrong, you know? And I feel like that's kind of the impulse that is going on, and why you're seeing like, you know, a return to like traditional forms of religion and stuff like that.
Yeah, that makes sense, because like it's kind of like you can like look and see, well, okay, this seems like this has been the liberal project played out. Like I could understand why that's the perspective. And so, well, you know, it is interesting, because even in my experience, like in the kind of modern evangelical, not like progressive in the sense of like progressive politics, but it was very progressive in the sense of like tech, you know, like, Christian, how do you do all this wizardry? Because like that was like in the church part that I was in, this was all normal. Like this is, you know,
that's crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like digital sound and video and lights and all. It's like that was like the water I swim in, and so translates really well to this. But there was always like a what's next? Like, what's the next cool technology that we could use, like that we could integrate? Like, and now it's kind of like, obviously, what's the next thing is like AI, or like who knows, like robots. It's kind of like, what? whoa, you know, it's like,
let's hold up for a
yeah,
minute,
like,
you know?
and so then where do you look? And it's like, I think everyone to a sense, you know, I showed you that Carey Nieuwhof. Like, I know you don't know who he is, but he's like a Christian Gen X leadership guru, big evangelical guru guy. And even like in this little Instagram thread thing that he put together was like basically saying the same thing. And it's interesting to hear that coming from that super slick, polished, tech savvy thing. He basically was saying like we got to go back to the deeper roots of the traditions. So yeah, I mean, one of the things I got on here talking about was how the like he kind of said it. He said used to people were coming into churches cold. He said now they're coming into churches warm. And by that mean like informed and open already to the tradition. Tell me what you said when you had that conversation with that Catholic priest recently. Like, what did he say?
So like I went to this Catholic church, you know, I'd been going to mass there for a little bit, and I asked to speak with a priest, you know, and we met, and he was just like, yeah, so we know that like you probably know all the theology and stuff already, but like here's your steps to become Catholic, is basically what he said. And because he was like, you know, we see like young guys and everything coming all the time, and they already kind of know what's going on with Catholicism and are just ready to become Catholic. And so,
whereas in the past, it would have been like he would have felt more need to like explain theology more. Is that what you're saying? Like, yeah. So, I mean, you know, he's like this kind of stereotype of like the young single man ready to like go be on crusade, you know, like ready
he was
to
like, yeah, we already know what's going on here. Just like,
you're trad, bro. Come on. It's okay. Yeah. But I mean, but it's fascinating because no one would have like really thought that was going to be reality. Now, obviously the percentage of Gen Z men that are, it's a small percentage, but it's a significant, I guess it's a change, like it's a trend change.
Yeah.
Whereas like basically every generation's more and more secular, and all of a sudden it bottoms out. And then you see a little tip upward. And is that something that is going to sustain, or will it just, is it a blip? You know, I think that's another question. One of the guys that people pay attention to a lot in this corner that has done a lot of work is Justin Brierley, who runs he wrote a book called The Surprising Rebirth and the Belief in God. And he used to run a conversation on the UK's like NPR program called Premier Unbelievable. And he would have like Dawkins and N.T. Wright. He would have these, like a Christian and an atheist sit around this little bitty table and have conversations. And that was like that was in like that previous zeitgeist. And now he's kind of doing his own thing, kind of documenting parts of the vibe shift. How much, like you mentioned, like some of these, the more hard edged things that are attractive to Gen Z, on, you know, that are things that, you know, I might be like, my little thing I say is it might be a little too based for my taste, a little too based for my taste, but like, I understand what you're seeing there. For me, like when you know, the fact that Joe Rogan's going to church now, Russell Brand became a born again Christian, like that kind of thing. These kind of like big influencer people, like how much of that, when you look at that, Chris Williamson, I mentioned him earlier, you would probably recognize him if you saw like, there's my phone, can't use my phone. But if you saw Chris Williamson, he had on these two girls, these really dolled up girls, like what is it? Bibles for Girls Gone Bible instead of Girls Gone Wild. They're like really aesthetic girls, but they like talk about, they're kind of evangelicals. He had them on his podcast. He's got like 1 million subs. He was, you know, he would talk to like Eric Weinstein. He's talked to like kind of all the like hustle bros and like all this kind of stuff. And yet he had them on like this week. It came out. One of his friends is Alex O'Connor. Like he had him on because he's British. But where was I going with this? Okay, do you think, like, when you look at like these older guys, even like Rogan and stuff, like, do you see it as like is it a grift, or is it a just like trying to stay with like their like when atheism was popular, that's just what everybody like? How do you view those moves?
No, I mean, I don't think it's a grift or anything. I think it's just like a massive cultural change that's going on. You know what I mean? Because like new atheism is dead. You know what I mean? Like you talk about being an atheist online, most people are just gonna mock you now. You know what I mean? Like there is no God, so shouts the fool. You know, but so Rogan and Brand and all these things. You know, I think that a lot of that is just like natural coming up from the culture and everything. Maybe like little places like TLC and everything, seeing the culture, cultivating something, you know, and it's just kind of rising from the bottom up. And now that it's rising, I think, you know, where's the order, you know, and I think that's also why these, you know,
The more hard edge
are looking
things.
for structure and everything. It's like, okay, so now we know that new atheism and the sort of woke consensus
Post-liberal
or whatever
enlightenment.
yeah, like okay, so we know that doesn't work, so now like now what? Now we need order, you know. Now what are we supposed to do? Where's our marching orders type of deal, you know?
Which obviously you can understand why people get nervous with that kind of language, right?
Oh, I say yeah. It's you know, it's like yeah,
Marching
Jesus,
orders in quotes, right?
yeah, not literal marching orders. Yeah, I mean like
You just got out of the military, right? So
yeah, I did. Yeah.
well, so I mean, yeah, I mean, and Peterson's marching orders weren't enough. I think that's in our conversations, like that, and there's disappointment and in certain ways levels of resentment as a result. And I happen, I mean, you know, to be the apologist, I do think that the subsidiarity, like one of his messages about subsidiarity, which is a great Catholic theology, I think, as well, is that like the beds do need to be made before you take your marching orders, but like that still needs to happen. But there is like you said, that's not enough. Like and the church offers the path, the way, and the embodiment of that. But I can understand, I think, why when you say stuff like there's not enough like structure, like the American governmental system or civic institutions, and even like at least, you know, who knows how it all gets like played out with controlled, you know, propaganda and stuff. But like what you see with riots, what you see like 2025, 2020, like if you're a young person and you're looking at America and that's what you're getting fed, kind of on both sides, but if you're getting fed that stuff, it's just kind of like, is this really our world? Like, and then you watch Home Alone and you're like, well, where did that world go?
What happened? Why was it so different?
What, you know, that was even like, you know, I was a kid when those movies came. Like what happened to the world that ER was filmed in? Like what, you know, even though it's like obviously those are, you know, fictional things, there's still something, you know, like all the sitcom world of like where did all that go? You can see why the generation that weren't living alongside that reality, but now is completely looking back upon it. And of course, there were like, you know, not everybody had an HD camera in their pocket when the Rodney King abuse riots like broke out, and like, you know, so who knows how much these patterns have already existed in certain ways, but there is a sense, I think, that probably is undeniable, no matter how bought in or not bought in you are to the liberal enterprise or whatever, that it does feel less stable in a way. And part of that is related to how interconnected and global the world is too. Like, I mean, so, I don't know. Does that thesis kind of...
No, that makes total sense.
Play.
You know, like you're talking about Home Alone and stuff like that. You see like just a different world. It seems like a totally different world, a totally different country, a totally different set
Now,
of beliefs. You know what I mean?
There is
And
the meme about now. What job did Kevin's dad have? Have you ever seen that? It's like this giant house in Chicago. He's paying for his brother to go on
this guy
vacation.
was a janitor or something. Yeah.
He's paying for his brother's family to go to Europe or whatever. It's like, wait a second. What did Kevin's dad do? He's
Yeah.
obviously an investment banker. I don't know what he was, but
Homer Simpson was just a tech, and he's got 2 cars. And all
yeah,
these, you know,
yeah, that's kind
Yeah.
of the other flip side of that is
Yeah.
like he like goes and has a beer and like every day after work with his friends and he's got a 2-story house with a garage and yeah. So, you know, those are interesting because if you were living during that time, you weren't like shocked by that, but a younger generation looks at that and like, I don't know, you know? So, yeah, those are, you know, we're talking kind of, these are, you know, these do reflect a lot of our conversations that we've had.
100%.
You know, like,
yeah.
when in certain conversations I've had on the online podcasts or in some live streams and stuff, like you're kind of this avatar running program in the back of like my mind sometimes about a certain perspective that I take very seriously. And so, and I think even, in one of the first podcasts I did was with a guy named President Foxman, he's probably a few years younger than you. And in other conversations we've had in the corner, about like that there is a pretty intense draw towards feeling nihilistic.
Yeah.
Would you say that that's true among your peers and people?
I think 100%. You know what I mean? Like, definitely people that I'm friends with that don't have any sort of religion and everything. It's completely like nihilism or hedonism or whatever, you know, because it's like, well, there really isn't a future. You just see like the decline, the constant decline. And I mean, you follow that down with your eyes and you're like, it just goes into the abyss. You know what I mean? So it's like a lot of people my age are just like, screw it, let's just drink and party and do whatever, you know, because we're never going to own a house or we're never, all this type of stuff, you know.
And you feel like that conversation is normal? Do you think?
Yeah, yeah, it's super normal. Yeah, like people talk about that all the time, like, and people say stuff like that all the time. It's like, oh, we're just gonna die anyways, like who cares, type of deal. And so yeah, there's definitely like a nihilist stream that's just kind of constant, sort of like a ethos, generational ethos sort of thing, I guess.
Yeah, there. I mean, I definitely was brought up in like a type of optimism, you know, kind of the plan, the American dream plan, you know, like even if looking back, if like in certain moves, in certain ways, like it would have been very difficult to hold on to that. I think it was still like in the water of achievable. But I think that the millennials did start, like the ones that ended up getting buried in like $100,000 worth of college debt, like were like, you know, or it's kind of, it's played out in a lot of different arenas, like careerism as well. I think has let down a lot of millennials that are now like, and I think part of this, even Peterson's success, was more with the Gen X and millennial people. I think it seems like for when we were watching a little bit of that Redeem Zoomer video that he just released about like why young men are like becoming more traditional or whatever. And he used Peterson in that as a meme of like, well, it was like, what was the left and the right? And sometimes traditional Christianity has a lot more in common with the right. And so even people, and it like popped up Peterson's face, like help people. This was part of like a journey, but for the younger folks, I think he was, and who was I listening to recently? It was kind of this thing there was kind of like he mentioned like the memes mocking woke or whatever,
Yeah.
That was more of the high school energy.
Yeah.
But when you're 30 to 40, you can laugh at that stuff, but you're like, you know, and you maybe you have some kids and your marriage is struggling. It's like you're looking for it. Like this doesn't. It's not just a joke at this point. And I think now Gen Z's coming up to that point, but they're still, like you said, you're looking for something more firm and less ambiguous, and that would go towards that whole Jubilee video thing. That do you know about that?
I know about Jubilee, but like what
The
video?
Peterson one recently.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
That one. Yeah. Oh,
But-
what do you mean do? What do you know? Like,
well,
come on.
that yeah. Well, you see that. I think it seems like that was like when you're talking about like his ambiguity is actually the very thing that you're like the critique now is like, you know, not being owned by one side or the other for a while was advantageous and probably smart and wise, but like on his behalf during that time. But when you're looking for like something more concrete, that kind of ambiguity isn't helpful anymore. Maybe.
Yeah, 100%. I think that was showcased really well in when he debated Richard Dawkins. You know, because it's like the ambiguity just kind of let Dawkins kind of walk on him. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think Dawkins won the debate, but I definitely don't think Jordan Peterson really won either, because it's just like in a debate, you really need like a concrete stance, you know, and it didn't feel like he had that much of a concrete stance, or it was too abstract.
Yeah, I think that there is abstract realities, and I borrowed from Pageau so heavily the word fractals, but like whether we're talking about biblical stories, whether we're talking about a mythic journey in your life, Joseph Campbell, those kinds of things like that he tapped into, that he brought out, and was, instead of like Campbell not giving the universal history of the Bible its due, Peterson did give it its due, but still at an abstractive archetypal level. And you're saying, but what about reality now?
Yes.
And like we need these things to help. We need aspiration, we need ideals, but we also want to believe that something is absolutely true. And I just got off of a conversation earlier today with a guy that'll come out soon, but he was bringing a lot of critique towards Peterson. I think he's probably mid-30s, maybe younger than that, and he's at I was talking about it earlier, I think, but he's at a big evangelical church in California. Paul did a rando with him recently, and he talked about how, and this is part of the what about I talk about with the collective distributive cognition.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So like this is an example now. Like obviously, well, I've heard something. It's like this is how fast those. I had a conversation with this guy today, and he was critiquing Peterson's. And this was the whole "We Who Wrestle with God" was really about Jacob, and I think Paul he the guy I was talking to today, Eric Benjamin, was highlighting that Peterson is talking about basically like building a ladder towards God, which in oh, hold on, I've got to fix some. Oh no, he's just gonna let you pop it on screen. I was gonna
No, it's
Lord forgive Payton, for
I am a sinner.
he is a sinner.
Yeah.
No, the thing like building this, where God actually came to us, like that's the story. And so he was saying that's kind of critique, and that kind of relates to like not everything. Well, in the Christian story, there's this contrast, and this is another part where I know I've pushed back on you about the power dynamics with the gospel.
Oh, yeah,
it's like, but this is like this tension because I feel the need for the hard edge that you're talking about. I needed it when I was rebuilding my life in a very, very serious way. Like, I needed kind of like this mythic, you can do impossible things. Like, yet there's also this thing and you could see how that could be extrapolated onto like, therefore power is ultimate. And then this whole, so and that so much of that is like self-directed, and that would be like kind of what Peterson, I guess, in part of that thesis is about, like, you know, that God is something to be achieved at the end of your journey in a way or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm making sense.
No, I get what you're saying. And like all of his stuff, like about about Genesis and everything, was so good. You know what I mean? All the sort of archetypes, and his whole Cain and Abel thing was, I mean, legendary. I felt like, you know what I mean? Super good. I remember watching those back in like 2017. I'm like, I can't wait till he gets to like the gospel story and everything. And I feel like lately he kind of did.
Yeah.
You know, especially like Ark and everything. And, you know, this is where I feel like the clash between the absolute and the abstract kind of came to a head at the gospel story, you know, because he's abstracting of like the ultimate sacrifice that orients the village around the church and everything. And I get the language and everything, but it's also like, no, the story is about the God man dying for us. Like, you know, like, it's actually not about like what works in a society. It's actually a truth statement, you know? And so it's like, now the archetypes and the intellectualization is actually working in your disfavor, and is actually kind of counterproductive to the point you're trying to make, because it's like, is this all the Bible is? Is it just a good story for orienting a society and orienting a life? Or is it actually making truth statements? You know, it's like, well, are we looking at it in sort of like pragmatism? Because that's still kind of operating in the same sort of atheistic, materialistic worldview. It's like, well, actually religion is kind of like an evolutionary benefit because it promotes moral behavior and it's a good way for people to live and everything. And I think that's kind of why he didn't want to come right out and say, I'm a Christian or anything like that, you know, because then you're submitting to certain truth claims. And I do think he's kind of a little bit in the materialistic sort of camp, even still.
Oh yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah. That, and I'll be honest, like, in the culture war, that was so sexy to me. And there is, I mean, Pageau, even, he does a lot of like the kind of like that ideal, I don't know if he would call it the cosmic image. He would take it all the way to 100% reality, which is why he partners so well. He like bridges that kind of Christian gap for Peterson in that way. But your point about how it, when I say like the order, like that kind of ordering of society being appealing kind of politically, but that kind of goes back to that, still that felt need that Gen Z's like, you know, like, so there's like this tension, because talking then about a true statement about God and what the gospel means, and like, it's hard for me to get away from that, there being, you know, the die to yourself like thing about that. Yet there's like, well, but what about the world that needs order and structure, and you have to like use power to, or I don't know, have to, but one of the means that seems like is obviously attractive is to use power to do that. You know, Reconquista, like, you know, the cruise, you know, so I see that as a tension that's I'm still wrestling with in a certain kind of way.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's almost like an ultimate paradox, you know what I mean? Because it's like, you need police to use power and violence to uphold like this order in society, but also like that same order and violence crucified the Son of God, you know? So it's like, now what do you get to, what do you do with that? You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. It's kind of like an open question, I think. You know?
That who was I talking to about Orthodox theology? They view symbolically government and religion being a two-headed eagle.
I didn't know that was what that symbol was.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And that I was kind of like, oh, that's helpful. Like, like you're saying that paradox, but is it a paradox or is it like a coexistence of realities that is a part of the, fallen world or whatever, how we want to say that. But that's what that made me think about was, I don't remember if it was, man, so many conversations, but you see, this is the distributed cognition right now. Like,
Yeah.
I've seen that symbol. It's like, oh yeah, well, I had a friend that told me. It's like,
I had no idea. That's
boom,
what it was.
and all of
Yeah.
a sudden, like, the cognition is shared. Like, it's kind of this
The big hive mind.
the
Yeah.
hive
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah.
The hive mind. Apparently, hive mind has a negative connotation, because I think it's like then associated with like insect
Yeah.
behavior.
Like loss of your individuality and
It's probably
stuff.
something, like
Yeah.
the queen,
Yeah.
the pope.
The Pope. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know anything about theology, but whatever the Pope said is probably the right thing.
Hey, that's probably a simpler way to live life.
Yeah. Yeah.
But dude, yeah, man. Well, I don't know. We've been cooking we're getting close to an hour. It's super late. It's 1:17 a.m.
My goodness.
I don't know. So we can kind of like try to push this towards an hour. I don't know, man. You got anything you want to like bring up into the conversation space?
Man, that's tough. I don't really know.
You're like,
Yeah.
there are things,
There are things.
and then there are things.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
You're like, I probably already know what Christian's gonna say about all of this. It's like, I don't know.
Just, I don't want to get your channel taken down or anything. That's why it's so tough. But no, I mean, I think the whole power dynamic, is definitely something that is going to be a big thing in the next like 10, 20 years and everything, and the whole order thing and all of this. I do think that is like a question that is like almost like the new atheist, or it's gonna become like a movement type of deal in time. I think.
Okay. I mean, we haven't said it. I think you said it, and I kind of talked over you briefly, but you said post World War II consensus, that I sent you that Jonathan Pageau video with Marshall, the dude from Mumford. He was the guy that got canceled from Mumford and Sons for being conservative. He got kicked out of the band.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, the guy he was talking to, the kind of like good-looking dude with his hair pulled back.
We're gonna do bluegrass music, but if you're conservative, you're out of the band. Y'all from Britain, all right? Y'all faking it from the beginning. So it's like, come on. I didn't know that happened. You're telling me now for the first time.
Yeah. I didn't know that. You're telling me now for the first time. Yeah. So that conversation, I mean, they get into like the Kanye West with his maybe more than controversial song singled out recently, but that whole, what were you just, the power dynamics shifting, and a big part of the conversation, Pageau was choosing that to be the place actually where he decided to talk seriously about the post World War II consensus and that myth beginning to crumble with age, with it dying off, with the people that actually participated in it. And then it's like, and for me, like my 9/11, for me, that myth has been shaky for a long time, but it's like that was like for my generation something that had like perpetuated that post World War II consensus or whatever. But there is a big question. That's why I say like the sense making, it seems like there's kind of the person two people that have been most salient for me is like I've had on the channel several times, Jordan Hall, this Redeemed Zoomer kid, mimetically like is very interesting to me. I keep going on, but I mean, I've been talking about him on my channel since like my 5th video, so you can like take that for this like a year and a half ago. So it's been baking for a while, but what do we do with power is that question. Is there a positive channel? Is that an example? Is Zoomer, and is he an example of a net positive way because he has explicitly said he's kind of doing the reverse woke or the anti woke. Like he's explicitly saying, I'm using those tactics to do what they've done to institutions.
Yeah.
So I think that was the thing that was one of the things. His conversation about institutions for me was like eye-opening in a way that I hadn't considered. So that was part of it. But the rest of that conversation with Jonathan Pageau about the symbol, we were talking about the swastika. I didn't know. I mean, I can visualize it, but that the Nazis turned the swastika on its side, and that in history it's always been straight up and down. And Jonathan, when he said this, he said that symbol is going to have to be reclaimed by the world for a positive vision. That was shocking. I mean, I know it was shocking to Winston Marshall, but it was also like, oh my gosh. I don't know. And you said you'd already had some like background on that symbology or whatever. Like what were, I can't remember what you said about it.
It's like, one of the oldest symbols, like, every culture has it because it's based off like Orion,
No,
like
okay, yeah.
in each season type of deal. It like kind of makes that shape. If you spring, summer, fall, and everything is like or the Big Dipper. It was,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
is what it is. It's like makes that symbol in the sky basically, and so it's like a time wheel sort of symbol type of deal.
And there was, Jonathan brought up that like because it's turned,
Mhm.
it creates a, I don't know if inversion is the right word, but like a chaos to it, which was kind of fascinating to hear because the Nazis were so, we talked about order and stuff, but it was like they were like a perversion of that.
It's like order on the move, order falling on something or something like that. Because it's like if it's like this, then it's always going to be falling somewhere. You know what I mean? There's that sort of, it's
instead
not
of there being
grounded.
something stable.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the flat line even at the bottom.
Yeah. So that's very interesting. Like I've gotten about halfway through that podcast. So you told me he said that. I was like, I can't believe he said that. That's crazy. You know what I mean? Wow.
That it needed to be reclaimed. Like Winston was like, I think we can like move on from that needing to be. And I was like, whoa. Yeah. That's like obviously Kanye West is a lightning rod of cultural vibes and creative intensity, and that Pageau has had conversations years ago about Kanye as like a jester, as kind of a pointer. I don't remember what figure he's, if it's prophet or whatever, he's kind of saying about he's a tuning fork for culture. And the fact he was one of the first mainstream guys to be like, no, I'm Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, everyone's like weird. And then like, you watch the dominoes from that point. Like it was kind of like same timeline as Peterson in that way. But then he's like off, like, I'm done with that. I'm going to be president. I'm done with that. I'm going to be the most, you said he's like, I canceled cancel culture.
Yeah.
I mean, but when Pageau said that thing about that symbol should be reclaimed for if it has good purposes from the evil that perverted it.
Yeah.
And that was one of those mimetic moments. I don't know what revelatory moments for me that was kind of like that in a sense kind of symbolizes this whole post World War II consensus thing in a kind of a different light, I think. I don't know. And it's interesting that I was telling you before we started to that symbol, like I didn't understand the power of like symbolism until I had like a personal experience with like, the Abraham dagger story, but like, why did that symbol like in an instant, like could have powerful meaning? So I believe that that's true now. But I'm like not some like a symbol first, like, what is it? The sticky notes on the wall
and the red string all around.
Well, this one
This means something. I'm making sigils over here. Yeah.
So I don't know. That was a pretty much landmark thing. But one of the voices too, which I was saying, was like Jordan Hall, because of his like tech bro background related to what's happening with society related to technology. the fact that he became a Christian recently, like legit, like this was not a cultural move for him. This was a very personal move for him. And so that is real fascinating for me when I'm looking at sense making. I think Pageau is going to continue to have like a pretty strong ability in this. One of the things I don't know if it was, well, in the corner is a guy named Luke Thompson who does a lot of live streaming. And I don't know if he got this from Jordan Hall or if this was something he kind of got, we all get this stuff from somewhere, but it's like, I do realize, I think we are moving into a more iconic mimetic realities where it's been so much like the written, we're like moving to just like memes, icons, even Redeem Zoomer's little church graphics, I think are actually really powerful. I've seen them pop up on a lot of other people's things.
Really?
Other people are using them as like little images for these denominations. And he associates them with colors and with like based off of certain things. On the cult one, he made them all gray and black.
Nice. Yeah. That's so funny because the Jehovah's Witness Bible is gray. Yeah,
Ooh.
it is. And like they grayed out everything and it's all. Yeah.
Why do you know about Jehovah's Witness?
Oh, I got a little experience with them, Yeah.
That's another story for another.
Oh,
we'll have to do like an official rando at some point.
yeah.
With the we didn't jump in on a rando. We just kind of went with like. So we'll see if this this video makes the light of day. We'll have to. I have to listen back through about this the whole section. I was making commentary on Jonathan Pageau's conversation with Winston Marshall. But anyways, dude. Hope this was fun, Payton.
Oh yeah, it was a lot of fun, man. Yeah, I like that I got to see the studio and everything. It's pretty nice in here,
Dude, this is this is the like we had some lighting, the old. This is how crazy I just. Look, you can even see what I'm doing here on the phone. This is so meta.
Behind the scenes,
Yeah, my air conditioner that doesn't work. It just is a fan for my air conditioner in that window over there. That thing broke after like a month.
Really?
Yeah. All right, dude. This was fun.
This was fun, man.
All right. Well, I'm going to let's see. We're gonna do some we gotta do some promo. Get out of here.
Oh yeah.
Promo.
MidwestEstuary 2025, August 22nd through the 24th in Elmhurst, Illinois. A weekend you won't want to miss with special guests Cale Zeldin, Paul Vanderklay, Rod Dreer, Elizabeth Oldfield, John Vervaeke, and Jonathan Pageau. MidwestEstuary 2025, the Fellowship of the Spirit. Stay tuned for more details. Visit us at MidwestEstuary.com for ongoing updates.
Hi, this is Christian Baxter, and you're listening to Yours Truly, a place we go to think out loud.